Okay, here we are for another episode of the podcast. This is Brian Skoll. We are talking today about flowers, and flowers are a really fascinating subject. They've fascinated humans for their decorative purposes and their beauty for a long time, and the fascination with them goes even deeper to science. And if you look at their evolutionary history, it's amazing to see that they are a plant that has managed to successfully communicate across species in order to survive as being pollinators. And so they have relied heavily on coevolution, which is a fascinating subject in itself. And but then also you move on to the history of floral design, and the history of floral design goes back as far as recorded history goes, from as being closely in relationship with the arts, from the Egyptians to the Greeks and the Romans. You see early designs and big shapes, starting with triangles and wreaths, and to eras like the Byzantine and the Baroque. You have William Hogarth being famous for the Hogarth curve, which is a compositional element used both in painting and in floral design, and especially in floral design. So there's been a really close relationship over the years, over the eras with that. And all of that is fascinating in itself and deserving of its own podcast. We're here today. I have a special guest with me, my lovely, talented, amazing, beautiful girlfriend, boss lady, Laura Daluga. And she is here to talk to us not only about her relationship with flowers, but more importantly, a really fun event that's coming up here in Michigan, about an event at the Cranbrook House and Gardens of a floral plein air festival called Art in the Elements. And welcome to the podcast.
That intro so expresses what it is I love about you. You so understand our art form. You've taken the time to get to know it, because understanding other art forms is super valuable. So breaking down floral design like that for your listeners, it's educational even for florists. A lot of people know and do things like the Hogarth curve without understanding where it came from. So being a member of AIFD, we have to know all of that history, and understanding where you come from helps you know where to go.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. So so what is your relationship with flowers? How, briefly, if we could talk briefly about this, what's your history with it? Why do you love it? How did you get into it?
Well, I grew up in a flower shop. My parents owned one. My mom inherited it from her father. She just busted her ass constantly to just deliver the best possible flowers to a community that wouldn't necessarily understand what they were getting. And in her local market, she was able to bring up that understanding by educating her customers. And I believe the same, that an educated customer is more dedicated and more willing to spend, and it elevates our art form. So having a deeper relationship with your customer, because as artists, we only get to create for a purpose. We never just make art because we want to. There always has to be an end game, whether it's for a wedding or a funeral. Communicating your abilities as an artist to your customer and helping them understand your art form increases their spending. I mean, get down to the bottom line. That's what it's all about. I wasn't always interested in floral design. It was kind of like this thing happening in the background of my life. I was dancing a lot. I wanted to be a journalist for a while. Both of those things still move me a lot. I feel like I have an inherent sense of tension and movement in my floral design that sort of embodies what I think is my style personally. And my journalistic tendencies definitely help for promoting events like this.
There's been a really close tie. One of the things that we have found talking over the years between painting and floral design, and both being dancers, is that there is a common bond shared in the arts with design that you can sort of relate to across the arts.
It's easily translated.
Yeah, definitely. So the floral industry is cutthroat, and not only is it cutthroat, but it is a hard industry to survive in. And so this was happening sort of in the background. And when you fell into it, then what was that like? What education I know has always been important to you, and so when it can you talk a bit about that? Because I know your mom was very encouraging about being educated, and you just sort of took the ball and ran with it.
Absolutely. She didn't want me to work for anyone else unless I had my designer certificate. Yeah. So just having the skill, it was kind of inherent to me. Dancing never came easy. Writing never came easy. Floral design was easy for me because I grew up in and around it. It was like I absorbed it through osmosis, for lack of a better word. It became a part of me. But knowing the nomenclature to go along with the work that I already knew how to do, all the mechanics and techniques, I knew how to do them, but didn't necessarily know what they were called. And having that confidence made it really easy for me at 18 to get a job in a big downtown store in Chicago and to just talk my way into that store. Yeah. Without that, I had the same design skills essentially after school, but what I had was an insane amount of confidence, probably too much for my age. And I was able to put myself in a position where I was making arrangements larger than I was every week. And I put myself in the sphere of first AIFD members I knew. And that's really what lit the fire under my ass to just keep educating myself. And that's the shot in the arm. Whenever you feel like you're stuck or uninspired, you can always look out and find inspiration, or you can educate yourself and then you can look in. And that's where creativity really comes from, is from building your skill set and then finding some reason to use that new skill. Yeah, and so carrying on with the importance of education, it can't be stressed enough. It is always going to be beneficial. But why is you have a European certification? What does that mean, and why is that important? Why should florists care? Well, we're all informed by each other, and in design in general, I'm going to make big platitudes here because I feel like I can speak about this in fashion, in design, in art, in architecture. We are constantly copying. In the Midwest, we are informed by both coasts, and both coasts, East Coast and West Coast, are informed by the rest of the world. So what we get in the Midwest, I like to think, because this is where I'm from, is we get a distillation, the best of the best of the best ideas. It takes a long time to get here, and we have to literally force it on people. But by the time a new design trend emerges and makes its way all the way to the Midwest, I feel like we've distilled it down to its base elements. And at that point, it is universally accepted everywhere else, and so it just slides in here. Being able to look abroad and see what they're doing in other countries, or even looking just to the coast and seeing what they're doing there, it makes you seem like a psychic in your local market. If you're from the Midwest, if you're from a bread and butter kind of town where people are just working for the weekend, if you can do things that they've never seen before, just by being informed of what's happening, elsewhere by the tastemakers, you've got a leg up no matter what. And in our industry, it tends to be a race to the bottom. A lot of flower shops feel like they have to compete with the Kroger or the big box store. They have to sell orchids at the same price as they do at Home Depot. And that's just the complete opposite mentality that we need to have. They still sell mums and carnations and orchids in Europe, but what they do is they enhance them in a way that could never ever be done in a big box store. It's that artful addition to something common. Yeah, it's having that education, being able to arrange it in such a way that makes it worth looking at even more than just the fact that the flower is beautiful. We've talked about this before. You have the luxury of working with a product that just shows up amazing, and that sort of often takes the credit for really poor design, and that's where it gets into where you were saying, where you have to educate the customer, and so the European mentality and that comes with that sort of certification and skill set
yeah, it forces you to look out and see what other people are doing, to sort of integrate and take the things that work really well and incorporate that into something that not only has beautiful flowers on it, but also has a design that is really fun to look at and makes you want to look at. And we've talked about this before repeatedly about how, you know, you guys are you're sculptors. You know, you have to think in the round. You have to compose often in the round. That is no small feat.
The fact we even have to consider physical balance.
Yeah.
Not just visual balance. I mean, we're not 2D artists, we are 3D artists, and as soon as you break into that third dimension and you have to consider not just visual balance but physical balance, you're a sculptor.
Yeah.
That's, for me, that's the real line. You go from having to just work in the abstract to having to actually worry about things tangibly functioning in person. It's not just something people look at. People tend to interact with flowers.
Yeah, which makes it, like most things concerning the arts, there is always more depth, and it's far more complicated than it seems to be, especially when it's done well. It's like watching a gymnast. They seem to move with ease, but they only move with ease because they're training 24/7. You can't turn your brain off. You are flowers 24 hours a day. And that, a lot of people don't understand the level of dedication that it takes for expertise. You're always researching. You're always looking up stuff and educating yourself.
I have to. I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
When you're an educator, you have to always be educating yourself. I mean, that is a dangerous thing that is unfortunately common in our industry, where someone finds one thing that they can teach and they teach it to death. And they sort of, for lack of a better phrase, paint themselves into a corner of being a one-trick pony, but that's the only thing that they know. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have a deficit of knowledge who are out there teaching. You really have to be constantly building your arsenal of things to teach and pass on. The best educators are also the best students. They're always out there constantly learning and growing and pushing. And you have to have around you a group of people that feel the same way about education. And for me, I'm very lucky to have an organization that of 2,000 people, best designers in the entire world. We're out there doing all of the big things that you see that have to do with flowers, whether it's the Philadelphia Flower Show or the Pasadena Rose Parade. If there is a big thing happening with flowers and sculpture, AIFD members are involved with it.
Yeah, so perfect. This what is AIFD? Why should anyone care? And why do you like them?
Well, we're a big family of flower nerds. So I have always known in my sphere of design that AIFD is a testing level of accreditation. That means you are not only accredited in floral design, but you really have the education and the skills behind you to be able to go out and teach. You can't, I'm not to say that you can't teach without being AIFD, but what you have, having tested, done the professional floral development exam, the PFDE, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
None of us like to say it again because we're all like recovering from having done it. What you get out of that is a base level of knowledge that is universal.
Yeah.
So there are hard and fast rules with art and design. You know, the principles and elements, that is what AIFD is based on. That is what our testing is based on.
Strong foundation.
A strong foundation that is consistent amongst everyone's style.
Yeah.
You know, all artists have a different style, but good art universally follows the principles and elements of design. And you can pick that out in any art form.
I mean, I remember what it was like when you were you were testing. It was crazy and stressful, but in good ways. But what was that like for you? You know, it's sort of like
it's like your dissertation.
Yeah.
That's the best way. When people say getting your AIFD accreditation is like getting your PhD, it is the culmination of, for most people, a lifelong history of real life experience. Most people don't test for AIFD right out the box, the first thing they do after going to design school. Most people test for AIFD after they've been in the industry for 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years. It's the pinnacle for a lot of people. It's not necessary to be an awesome designer. I know dozens and dozens and hundreds of designers that are fabulously talented, and it's just not in their purview to, seek the letters. But for those of us that want to be out there teaching, to be out there, working in magazines, doing editorial work, for me, those are the opportunities I seek to create for myself to do really cool work. Because again, there always has to be an end client. We're forever forcing cool ideas on our customers.
Yeah, definitely. And
we have to convince them.
Yeah, you do. And it's unfortunate because, AIFD, from what I've seen, is a lot of people who all love the same thing coming together, and it's really hard not to feel the love just for the art form in general. And despite the fact that everyone has their own goals, their own aspirations, their own reasons for doing it, it's common ground, and like you said, a foundation, shared experience, but also an elevation of what really needs to be considered in America in art form. America is really missing a large art form that it could be indulging and taking a part in more readily, that you see more in Europe as flowers as art. And so AIFD is sort of another avenue, providing more options for you to indulge in it as art. And so that sort of takes us to why you're here talking today about it. Flowers as art. What have you been working on for the last year?
Way more than a year. In reality, we've been planning this strategically for about a year. But for the first year that we moved to Michigan, I cold emailed hundreds of venues in hopes that we could take an event that we'd previously done called Nature's Creative Edge. It was a scholarship revenue stream for the North Central chapter of the American Institute of Floral Designers, AIFD. What we do with those funds is we send people to flower school. We send them to symposium, and we just try and blow their minds and level them up as much as we can. Nature's Creative Edge was an event that took place for 8 years on the west side of the state, on private property owned by Bob Frise, AIFD, who is a lifelong laureate member and an amazing designer. He's got the Michigan Midwest floral design sense down to a T. It's very natural, and his aesthetic is not contrived. He does a really good job of incorporating flowers that don't belong in an environment into an environment and making it still work. So he had an event on his property, and it started just as educational, insular, just for us sort of event, and they opened it up to the public. And what they discovered, even on the west side of rural Michigan, was that thousands of people wanted to come into the woods and see large-scale floral design.
That's fascinating.
And they were willing to pay to do it,
to
be bust in and do it. And after years and years of doing it, I got to participate in the very last one they had before they rolled up the sidewalk, and Bob's getting a little up there in ages. So what we decided to do then was to just set out and try and find a new home. And knowing that this market here in Detroit embraces both art and sculpture and weirdly specific floral design events. Some of them are not always the best, but we're going to make this one awesome. What I did is I just started hammering venues, and one of the very first
you got
ones,
the bug. You got the bug from doing the last one.
Absolutely.
And it's like, well, God, this is gone now. What do we do? So I remember you talking about that. Like, there's no outlet now for this.
Well, you get to connect with people. I mean, the people that would come to Nature's Creative Edge were not always typical flower customers. They weren't people that were going every week and buying an artful flower bouquet for their wife. It was a novelty for them, and getting able to just break through the whole idea of there being commerce involved, to go directly and take out the money factor whatsoever and just go right from art right to the viewer. I mean, we never get to do that. There's almost always a really high ticket price or an occasion, what we call a a calendar day, you know, a birthday, wedding, something like that. There's always a reason behind flowers, and this was for the sake of art. And I couldn't see that die. I finally heard back from the Cranbrook House and Gardens. It was just about 18 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And before we did anything, we set a date.
Yeah, like
because
a year out.
There's
Yeah. More than a year out.
More than a year out. So it was about 18 months ago now that we set the date. And there's a sweet spot in September that it's warm enough during the day, that it's not so hot that it's killing the flowers, and not cool enough at night that the flowers aren't freezing. There's just a little window where is that the flowers are just outside. They're out in the elements. They're exposed. And we want to see them develop, not just die. We want to give them a responsible source of water. And we want to showcase them in a way that you never get to see. Like you said, the flowers themselves are beautiful. It's us turning them into something else that is what's so interesting.
So what drew you to Cranbrook? Why, like we went there together, and I remember walking around being like, wow, this place is amazing. And so right off the bat, it's a beautiful place.
How did I not know about this when I was going to art school? There's a Hogwarts for art in Michigan, and if you've never been, it's amazing. So the Cranbrook Art School, and it's a huge campus. It's hundreds of acres, and it's the highest level fine art training that you can get in Michigan. Attached to it, and what basically funded all of that existing, was this historic landmark status house. It was owned by the Booth family, who unsurprisingly have car connections here in Detroit. It's a beautiful house. They have acres and acres of formal gardens, everything from a European not herb garden to a Japanese style garden with the Zen stones and all of that. They meticulously take care of it with all of their volunteers. And when I came for a site visit to meet with them, they approached me with a perfect space to have it. Room for a dozen designers the first year.
Excellent.
Well contained, and because I was really forthright with what we intended to do, they were absolutely willing to work with us and give us all the support that we needed.
Yeah, so what was the can you speak a bit about what the logistics were like in trying to put all this together? Talk about that. It's florists are, I make the same joke with philosophers and artists. It's herding cats, and so there's a lot involved, and you've been juggling a million things at once. Yeah,
well, the Cranbrook House and Gardens has a nonprofit board, and AIFD is a nonprofit organization with regional membership and regional boards as well. So it's been getting our national organization, our regional organization, and their organization all on the same page. Not just in terms of what the event's going to be, but also in terms of a legally binding agreement and insurance policies and all of that stuff. That is the least fun part of all of this. But in comparison to getting all the designers involved and on the same page and disseminating all of the logistics information to them, that has been much harder. Yeah. More exciting and a lot more fun than working out legal agreements and insurance policies. But the herding cats part is really what's going on now. Getting all of these artists, because I view every American Institute of Floral Designer as an artist. Not all floral designers are artists. Some of us are just craftsmen. I myself feel like I mostly do craft and sometimes do art. All of these people are artists, and they all have big ideas. Getting them to get those ideas onto paper and fleshed out fully so that I can have everything they need for it ready for them weeks in advance of the event. That's the hard part. When you're creative, the ideas just keep coming. And I get that. Having to commit to an idea. I committed to my idea for my design 2 months ago. And it's a struggle to not constantly be changing it. I've edited the color scheme a little bit as other designers' work has come in, because we don't have a completely repetitive color scheme. So I saw that my color scheme was very similar to someone else's, so I edited it. But The actual structure and design itself hasn't changed. And believe me, I want to change it. Every wedding bouquet I see, I'm like, that's great. Maybe I'll have that.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, if I had an infinite budget, what could I do?
Exactly. Well, that's the great thing about this event. The only constraints we really have are space. Other than that, we've had such awesome product support from Oasis Floral Products and beautiful fresh support from Blooming of Beloit, which is a local farm in Beloit, Wisconsin. And then also from our local wholesaler, Nordlie, Kennecott, and Warren. They're being really great about just saying, hey, let us know what you need, what you want, and we'll do our best to get it there. We're in an industry where we're constantly having to punt. You can sell your customer on something, you can order that thing, you can know exactly what farm it's coming from, and there are so many steps along the way, so many places for there to be hang-ups that we're constantly having to adjust and make substitutions. And because
you really have to adapt.
Absolutely. We have to be really flexible as designers.
Yeah. And over the years doing floral dresses and watching you do more designs, all these companies, the ones that you mentioned especially, they've all been extremely supportive. Always been willing to throw product and tools and just whatever is needed to help these artists get the job done.
Oh, absolutely. I think Smithers Oasis personally underwrites our entire industry.
Yeah.
Every show you've ever seen, even if they're not footing the bill, they are underwriting it by providing all the hard goods, all the foam, all the wire, all the decorative elements. Basically, all of the strategic mechanics we use come from them. And North Central chapter of AIFD especially has felt since its beginning a huge amount of support from the Kennecott family, which in Michigan is the Nordlie family. It's all one big family now. But they have always supported us in all of our efforts, whether it was in Nature's Creative Edge or the Chicago Flower and Garden Show. They've got our backs, and they've always have. We're really, really grateful for that, because not only are flowers expensive, they're even more so when you're trying to use them in abundance for large-scale designs. Yeah. We really want to take people's perceptions of flowers from being some everyday $5 bouquet that they picked up at the checkout to something that can be immersive and more than just a flower they watch die. Some kind of ephemeral piece of art that they get to watch develop instead.
Yeah, something that speaks to them. I mean, it makes no sense to me that you should only enjoy the sublime nature of flowers as being something that is capturing a sense of beauty and is gradually dying just in painting, for instance, when you could very easily have it happen as a sculpture in front of you, and it's so much more interactive, it's so much more engaging, and you can appreciate it in the round, and that's what this event is supposed to be, the Art and the Elements. So how do you envision this event? Like, can you talk about the event then?
Yeah, so it's taking place on September 8th through 10th at the Cranbrook House and Gardens in Bloomfield Hills here in Michigan. The Friday night event is a ticketed preview, kind of a cocktail party. Should be great. So what you'll get in addition to getting to see the exhibit is a drink ticket, some awesome cocktails, and a floral wearable. So everyone that comes to the ticketed event will leave with a floral boutonniere or a flower ring, a very tiny token piece of floral art, just a little taste into what most AIFD members are doing on a regular basis. The show will open to the public for a really great ticket price. It's $15 in advance or $20 at the door. And it'll be open on September 9th and 10th. That's Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, we're open from 10 until 4. On Sunday, we're open from noon until 6. We have tons of parking, and you just walk right up. We'll show you around. In addition to the amazing, immersive, large-scale floral sculptures, the House and Gardens will be open as well. So you can, after you see the show or before you see the show, you can wander the amazing and gorgeous gardens that are already a huge draw in this market. I mean, thousands of people come every year just to view these gardens. They're just beautiful. Some of the most architecturally creative environments that I've seen for floral in terms of plantings. They're just artfully done. The volunteers are amazing there, and
passionate. They're
absolutely.
Very, you can see it. Yeah.
And the environment that they've given us to work in is beautiful and serene and shaded. Shaded being the most important part.
Important.
Yeah, those poor flowers don't have a chance if they're in direct sun. So each of us gets a large space to work in, and we'll either be putting sculptures, growing out of the ground or suspended from the trees. It's our choice. It's a leave no trace event, so have no worries. We're not going to hurt any trees. We're not going to harm any plants. Everything we truck into the woods, we'll be trucking right back out. We're really excited. We're super grateful that they're willing to let us come in and so to speak, trash their woods for a couple days in advance while we set it all up, because if you've ever been in the back room of a flower shop, it is a mess. There's just shrapnel from flowers everywhere, and until it's all fully set up, it's so many moving parts. I'm preparing for it to be one of the most mentally exhausting but totally exhilarating weeks of my life.
Yeah, as it's already been that, so it's only going to get more. So, who can we expect here? What's some of the talent that we can expect to be here?
Well, we've got on our design roster some pretty amazing designers. In addition to myself and our chapter's president, Brent Leach, who's from Geneva, Illinois, we'll have Debbie Strand and Stacy Carlton. We will have Cheryl Timmerman, Susan Hulsman, Mary Linda Horn, Lisa Belisle, and Trisha Hazler. These are all amazing, high-level Midwestern floral designers. They're all in their own right amazing artists. The fact that we're all coming together, and in addition to a few more people, Kathy Brunk and Elaine Mercoris will all be collaborating on the large-scale decor. So the goal is for everyone to get their big pieces done by midday Friday, so we can just whoosh, all slam out the decor for the guests that'll be coming that night. So in addition to large-scale floral sculpture and a token wearable, you'll get to take in some amazing large-scale event design, the likes of which we don't often see in this country.
Yeah, that's important to take note of. It's as far as an art event happening, it's going to be very unique and worth seeing. Okay, so what would you want someone to feel, the takeaway after going and experiencing this, coming out of it? What are you hoping for?
Oh my gosh, I hope that we can sort of reframe what flowers are for a lot of people. I mean, the people that'll be coming to our show are going to be people who have a huge appreciation for flowers or sculpture or traditional architecture. People who are already, as we say, flower freaks. But what we are hoping is that we get some of the mass media and some more local traditional media attention that will, bring in other people that wouldn't normally come to a show like this. The sort of attendance we saw on the west side of the state. Completely surprising, unexpected, way outside of our normal demographics for the audience. I want people to leave with a new perception of flowers. I want them to see it as a medium rather than just a thing they watch die. I know it sounds terrible when I say that, but that is the most common perception of flowers, that they are a luxurious something at best, but most commonly they're seen as a commodity. And I want us to move away from that. I want us to move more towards them being appreciated, not just for their beauty, but for the artfulness with how they're arranged.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that really surprised me when we first started dating was how long flowers could last if they were taken care of properly. And this just speaks again to the education. But a lot of people don't understand that their perception of why flowers just, you buy them and they die, is really because of people not knowing how to take care of them, people not knowing how to process them, and processing is everything. And there's steps behind all that a lot of people aren't aware of, and if done properly, it lends itself more to this art form, where then you can appreciate the flower for that much longer.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. If the consumer ever had any idea what the flowers look like when they got to the flower shop before they're sold, they would appreciate, I think, a lot more how much caretaking is involved. I mean, we, as floral designers, especially in the retail world, we're not even the last caretaker for the flowers. We're next to the last. The end consumer, the person who's enjoying that vase of flowers on their kitchen table, that's the last caretaker for them. And we have to set them up for victory by giving them things like flower food to take care of their flowers and let them develop. But if we don't take the flowers and process them well, condition them well, give them all of the things that they need to develop and become a thing for people to watch develop, and rather than just croak in a vase, what we've done is we've let down all of the people before us in that chain. The people that are shipping, the people that are wholesaling, the people that are growing and cutting and developing. I mean, flowers have on average 10 years of R&D that go into a single variety. I mean,
as far as breeding goes, you're saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those people, if we don't take care of the flowers that they have literally created through science for us and bred and grown and delivered to our stores, if we don't take care of them, we're letting them down, throughout that whole process. We are caretakers for this beautiful product that we sell.
Yeah, that took 10 years to make.
Absolutely, at the minimum.
At the minimum. But even despite the that length of time, you still see flowers as being such a fast evolving art form. It's just as far as the flowers themselves go, is changing. There's always new varieties. There's always new things coming out. But yeah, we're on a 10-year delay, but you're still getting, here's a new kind of flower, and it's like, wow, a new kind of flower. Like, how long would it have taken to get that in on its own? You just don't see that. So
yeah. Every year at the Society of American Florists convention, they have something called the New Varieties, and all of the best growers come and they bring the new variety they are most proud of, and they get what I think is really, it's got to be so informative for them is direct feedback from the next to last consumer, their final customer, who's the florist. To get that kind of direct feedback is invaluable, especially in this industry. It's a no news is good news kind of industry. If you don't hear anything back, you did good enough. Every now and then you hear something awesome, and every now and then you have a problem, and that's inevitable with a fresh perishable product. I mean, imagine if people were delivering bouquets of vegetables to each other. It's that level of perishable, but the expectations are how much higher? So much higher. Yeah. So we really it's up to us. We are duty bound, especially in AIFD. We take an oath to hold our own feet to the fire, hold the wholesalers' feet to the fire, to just make sure that the flowers are getting the best possible public perception. Yeah, which is really important in getting America back on track as far as the arts go, in the floral arts, for sure. But we don't have a rich tradition of floral design here. We're building that. Yeah. It's building. It's, to be fair. AIFD wasn't founded until the 60s, so we're in our 51st or 52nd year now as an organization. So we're 2,000 members. I think that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Because our standards are extremely high. I didn't speak to it, but most people test like I did at least twice to get in. Yeah, so it's not an auto in. Not an easy thing to pass. People, they go in thinking one thing and they come out changed. Yep, passing or not. It's like trying to do your dissertation. Yeah. So, Art in the Elements. Where can people get tickets? How do you get there? Can you buy a ticket at the door, or do you got to pre-book? You can buy a ticket at the door. There'll be $20 on Saturday and Sunday at the door. $15 in advance, and the best place to buy tickets is on the House and Gardens website. It's housegardens.cranbrook.edu. And the pop-up on the main page is for our show because they are as excited about this as we are. And housegardens.cranbrook.edu, or you can just Google Art in the Elements. It's the first thing that pops up right now. We're super duper excited. We're really, really close to getting to the point where this is not just break even, but profitable. And every dollar that we make with this event goes towards bringing up florists younger than we are and educating them and giving them the opportunities that they need to, stick their neck out and jump into the deep end and, see what the possibilities are with flowers.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds so simple, but a ticket like this is not only supporting an arts event, but it's also supporting artists, and it's supporting the next generation of potential artists too.
And it's supporting the House and Gardens.
Yeah,
which
especially.
In and of itself, they need support as well. I mean, we need to protect our historic homes, and especially ones that are not just maintained, but are flourishing.
Well, I think that covers it pretty much. Where can people go to find you online?
Well, I'm on Instagram, obviously. I'm on all the social medias. My handle on the internet is Do Floristry, DOFLORISTRY, as short for my business name, Department of Floristry. I'm a one-person department. Or dofloristry.com. In addition to that, I'm all over Facebook, and if you are an up-and-coming florist, I would be more than happy to mentor you. Anyone that ever needs any help, advice, critique, we are all out there. Anyone with those letters after their name, you can ask them for help, and they will help you. Or at the very least, direct you to the right place to get that help.
Yeah, that especially. The passion for education is there. And people are willing to share, and that's no small thing. So can people people can buy things on your website now? Like your website is geared more towards showing off what you do, and but also
I do have e-commerce on there. If you're local to us here in Detroit, I do have some cool designs on there. They're not everyday designs. Some really kind of cool space flowers, things that you could send to someone for if they did have what we call a calendar holiday, a birthday, an anniversary, sort of stuff like that. For the most part, I get to express myself through special events, weddings, funerals, things like that. It's really fun when people come to me because I know that they have looked at my work and they appreciate the floral sculpture that I try and bring to every event. I try and do things that are out of the box and out of the ordinary. And in a market that really appreciates contemporary art and fine art, sculpture, and flowers in a very specific way, it's been a really good fit.
Yeah, and I bring that up because if people are looking for a way to support the arts, to support the podcast, to support what we do, in addition to going to this event, your website is a place where they can go and do that, and they can actually get something for their money, something beautiful that they can enjoy, a work of art, and be supporting us in what we are trying to do, which is
we're just big art nerds.
Big art nerds, and we want to live every day being able to nerd out on our respective art forms, and so that's why this is happening. So I think that covers it. Thank you, my dear, for coming on. It's nice to have you, and hopefully we can do this again, talking about something else. So
maybe the next flower dress.
Yeah, we can do that.
Live from Floridica, 2018.
For sure. Why not? There's all sorts of things we can do. So, thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate your listening. And
thanks so well, listeners.
Yeah, and
like and subscribe and podcast and all that stuff that you're supposed to do.
All that stuff, like and share and blah blah blah.
All that good stuff.
I will be chatting at you guys later.